Good afternoon and welcome all. This is the latest in our educational series related to our district-wide program called ARC, Assisted Reentry into the Community. It is, I see mostly familiar faces, and so I know that most of you may, in concept, at least understand some of the programs that we're involved in. But the purpose of today's hearing is, or hearing, it's not a hearing, it's a program, is to introduce you further to our 3 reentry court programs, 2 of which I preside over, and that would be our behavioral health court, RISE, RISE Behavioral Court, which stands for Reentry Independence Through Sustainable Efforts. I also preside over our RISE Drug Court program. Judge Warner is the pioneer in the federal system over this district's Veterans Court program, and he will discuss that after I get my say. He was kind enough to give me the first opportunities, I think probably conceding that if he went first, I might never get to say anything, right? So anyway, that was very kind. We appreciate your participation here today and your willingness to learn, and for all of the, particularly the AUSAs that are present, welcome. We want to encourage and hopefully leave enough time for questions. We also, in terms of the Behavioral Health Court and our Drug Court, have some participation. And I will ask one of our graduates of our drug court program and a mom of one of our participants in our behavioral health court program to talk to you a little bit in a few minutes about their experiences. Let me give you, first let me ask you all questions not to be answered aloud. Is there any one of you in here whose family member or friend or associate has not been touched by mental illness? Is there any one of you in here who doesn't have a family member, friend, or associate who hasn't been touched by addiction? Is there anyone in here whose family has not had a veteran among their mix who may have experienced some problems? All right, with that in mind, let me give you, or briefly give you, a history of the advent of the special courts here in the District of Utah. The genesis for our courts began about 9 years ago, and the drug court actually started in this way. Many people from the Defender's Office and from probation had come to the federal courts having served in state positions. And so they were aware and knew that the state of Utah had established early on successful working drug courts. They had also, within the past few years prior to this, established working mental health courts. Now let me say that both of those court systems were pre-trial programs that offered to participants a plea and abeyance opportunity, at which time, upon graduation, their pleas would be set aside and they wouldn't have conviction. Now that wasn't going to work for our programs for a number of reasons that I'll go into in a minute. But these individuals, among whom were Megan Van Skyver, our dear departed Kevin McKenna, Karen Pace, Henry Cisneros, and others who said, why don't we in the federal system have any such specialty courts? And the answer, and it was directed to me because I come from the state system as well, was because we never had. And so at that time, we began to plot. And the plot was this. Let's create a potential program that we can offer to our district court judges that they might look at and consider in determining whether or not we could implement any such courts within the District of Utah. We asked permission of Judge Campbell, who was then the presiding judge, the chief district court judge, and she said yes. So we went about planning how to put a drug court together with many challenges in the way. Because of Department of Justice policy, which disfavored any kinds of programs at the time, we determined that we needed to be a post-conviction court. And so we set our sights on doing that. Now, in the meantime, and simultaneously to this, here in the District Court of Utah, I, as well as other judges, were encountering significant problems related to those defendants who suffered from severe and persistent mental illness, particularly as they might be sent to various Bureau of Prisons facilities for evaluations and then returned to Utah, finding that in many, many cases they were coming back, and this was often while in Bureau of Prisons custody, with little or no medication, no treatment plans, transportation periods which lasted anywhere from 3 weeks to 8 or 9 weeks, resulting in a large number of decompensations once individuals had been restored to competency, assuming that was the case. Well, I took the lead on that and called together a working group. And the working group consisted of representatives, again, from probation, from the Defender's Office, from the U.S. Marshal Service, and from Bureau of Prisons. And the idea of that working group was to identify the problems that were being encountered and to attempt to find solutions to resolve those, figuring that not only was it detrimental to the mental health client, but it was very, very, very costly and did nothing to assist any guarantees for continued public safety or anything. And so that happened simultaneously. So I got this working group together. Bob Steele was one of the forerunners of that. Georgette Leventis was our lead. And I said, well, let's put together a proposal for a mental health court. Again, post-conviction. One of the other reasons for consideration of post-conviction courts was that, as we all know and knew, persons serving federal sentences were, for the most part, serving lengthier, much lengthier sentences than they would if they were serving state sentences. And with that in mind, we determined that 2 courts were appropriate. We also determined that 2 courts were appropriate because those with severe and persistent mental illness did not necessarily blend well with those whose primary diagnosis or problems have to do with severe addiction. And I will tell you that our district judges approved our pilot projects for those 2 courts, and I guess we've been on pilot status ever since, and we apparently are doing well enough that our judges have encouraged us to go forward with that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about each court. Our RISE Drug Court is a court that meets once a week on Tuesdays with screening from 10:30 until 12, and with court from 12, and usually we're through before 1:30. And during that period of time, during the first hour and a half, we staff. And we are a collaboration. There are participants from each of the interested partners and agencies, and we collaborate and we come to decisions pursuant to that collaboration. There are very few instances in which a decision has been left to me alone to make. And we think that that is a very good thing. We have a maximum in our drug court of 25 participants. For the most part, they are returnees on supervised release whose supervision status is in jeopardy for reasons related to their continued addiction. Our mission with regard to the mental health court is, I can't state it verbatim since I didn't bring it down. No, I did. The purpose of the RISE Drug Court Program is to promote reentry independence through sustainable efforts that increase public safety by supporting sobriety and law-abiding behavior through reducing relapse and recidivism for moderate or high-risk and high-need individuals. These sustainable efforts by the participant and the RISE team support personal responsibility, alternatives to incarceration, and recovery from alcohol and or drug addiction, all of which result in significant cost savings to taxpayers. Now, at this time, could I ask those that participate directly in our RISE Drug Court Program to stand, and I will introduce you for them. Come on. I know there's more of you than that. All right. There. All right. We have Megan Van-Skyver, Annie Carr, and Jennifer Gaston, who are our probation case managers and are the supervising officers of our participants. Spencer Rice, I won't tell everybody what Judge Warren calls him. No, we won't do that. But Spencer, as you know, is from the Federal Defender Office and keeps us honest on infos on those occasions when we might stray off course. As Vernon Statesville is our newest participant as an AUSA, and Vernon, with his predecessor, Rich McKelvey, and others, Dave Backman, were, if not there at the beginning, are there now, and have created a great deal of goodwill. But for those of you from the U.S. Attorney's Office who might think that they've been co-opted, forget it. They haven't. They are still very much who you would want them to be. Michelle Watson is an investigator from the Federal Defender Office who does a lot of the groundwork and takes care of the individual defendant needs oftentimes. And Lauren Hilton here is from Valley Behavioral Health, recently a name change from Valley Mental Health. And she is our treatment provider and the therapist for our drug court participants. We couldn't do this if we weren't a team, and they deserve a lot of praise and recognition. Thank you, everybody. Now, we are a non-adversarial court in both of our two courts. As I've said, we work as a collaboration. We work on a positive or an affirmation model, but we do impose evidence-based practices, those practices that work. And among those evidence-based practices are the proven principles that when people perform well, when they do things well, when they assume responsibility, when they remain sober, when they attend treatment and do all of those other things as required, they are entitled to, just as we hope we are, to some praise and congratulations. I will tell you that it is not unheard of to be told by participants, this is the first time I've ever had a court experience that was good. It is the first time anyone has ever said anything positive about me. It is the first time that anyone has ever written anything about me that is positive. And so for those that feel that way, you can see why that would be good. That's not to say that we don't sanction. And if you want to use the word punish, we punish, but we prefer to use the word sanction. Days in jail are not uncommon. We try to distinguish between what is addict behavior and what is willful behavior in terms of approving sanctions or imposing sanctions. Addict behavior is oftentimes as simple as use. It is continued use before treatment has had a full opportunity to work. Willful behavior is another thing. Willful behavior is excuses that are rendered of why one couldn't go to treatment, why one missed a UA, why one didn't come to court, things that are within the control of the individual. And we will more severely sanction willful behavior. To graduate from our drug court program, a person must have participated no less than 1 year and at the end maintained a period of sobriety of at least, is it 90 days or 6 months? 90 days, thank you. We aren't surprised when there are relapses on occasion, but we do set people back in their program in the event that that happens. All right, now let me describe for you our behavioral court program, previously known as our mental health court. But recently, as we've gone through revisions to our model, we've renamed our court. We've renamed it our RISE Behavioral Court, believing that it carries less of a stigma than mental health court, which presumes, I think, that if you are in a mental health court, that you suffer from a serious mental illness, which is true. You would not be in our court unless you did. But we're trying to make our community safer and reduce recidivism by using positive techniques. In our mission statement, although it doesn't say it in particular, it is not our goal to cure. Mental illness, for the most part, cannot be cured. But as our NAMI representative, Jackie Rendo, will tell you that while it cannot be cured, it is possible to have recovery. And it is our mission to stabilize those persons with severe and persistent mental illness, Axis 1 mental health conditions, to a point of stability during the period of their supervision, such that when their supervision has ended, they have enough stability in the community, enough contact and relationships within the community that they can maintain their sobriety, if that's also an issue, and that they are secure in their treatment, their medications, and their ability, to the best of their ability, to maintain independence. Specifically, the purpose of the RISE Behavioral Health Court Program is to promote reentry independence through sustainable efforts that improve health and increase public safety. Such efforts support effective symptom management of serious mental illness, sobriety for individuals with coexisting substance abuse and dependence, activities for daily living, and social leisure activities for defendants and offenders serving a term of supervision. In addition, participants are assisted with applications for local, state, and federal benefits such as Medicaid, Social Security, and housing. We have a maximum availability in our mental health court, although we've got education here there, of 10. Just as we have a limit of 25 in the drug court. That is resource driven. There are more who would like to be in each of our courts. Within our mental health court, we don't have phases as we do in drug court that a person has to achieve, and that's because the individual needs of persons in mental health court are different. Their periods of supervision may differ, and we judge their suitability for graduation based upon a consensus and a recommendation to the district judge that they have attained a certain level of independence such that their goals have been met, and upon release they can live a more secure life. Let me tell you also that our mentally ill participants are very vulnerable, and this program helps them as well to rise above those vulnerabilities. The biggest problems for participants in our courts are housing, benefits and or employment, and supporting relationships within the community. And we focus very heavily on those aspects. Some of our participants have wonderful family support. You'll hear from Mom in a moment. But others do not. And so we do focus on trying to engender and reinstitute and create good, lasting support systems. As I said, housing and employment are incredibly difficult. We also have hooked ourselves up with and involved ourselves deeply with this district's UDAP program. For you who don't know what that is, it means Utah Offender Workforce Development Task Force. I was fortunate enough to chair the advisory committee of that state, federal, and local collaboration begun about 5 years ago formally, wherein the expertise of both state and federal participants came together to identify and eliminate barriers to employment for those returning from state and federal sentences, again, oftentimes without skills, again, or as may be obvious, without employment possibilities. All right, our mental health court meets on Mondays. We screen at 10 o'clock and we start court at 11. We offer small rewards. Candy sounds silly, but if a person has done everything that they're expected to do that week, the reward of going at the beginning and receiving a token of good works is very important to participants. We also have drawings for certificates that those who qualify may enter, and we have a few social occasions per year. I did not ask those in the mental health court to stand, but I would like them to, if they could ever participate, and so I can introduce them and you know who they are. Please. Okay. Now, Bob Steele, as you all know, from the Federal Defender Office, and Bob was one of the originals. And I've always thought there was no better person to have undertaken this project than Bob. He has a unique understanding of those in our behavioral health court, and will always appreciate it. Thank you, Bob. All right, Greg Peterson, case manager from U.S. Probation. Lauren Hilton, again, our treatment provider and therapist from Valley. Jackie Rento, our NAMI representative. I mean, we are well represented by her presence, and she is an employee of the National Alliance for Mental Illness. Mariska Holt, as you know, from U.S. Probation. Epi Garcia from the Federal Defender's Office. Okay, from the Federal Defender's Office. Georgette Leventis, investigator from the Federal Defender's Office, and Jacob, I just blacked from your last name. Strain, of course. All right, and we have others who are not here, but thank each of you for your willingness to work with this population of people, and for your dedication and compassion. All right, now we have about 5-10 minutes left on mine before Paul talks to you about Veterans Court. And I would like you to meet one of our recent graduates. And I would like her to, as she feels comfortable, to tell you a little bit about her story and her journey, because she's an important example of how things can work well. Sarah, please come up.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm not going to get nervous. I'll just start talking a little bit about perspective, because I think that the more we open our perspectives to the different ways that people are suffering with drug addictions, mental health issues, whatever, we need to open our eyes and kind of like you said, who among us has not been touched by addiction in some form or mental health? I don't think anyone could raise their hand, really, because we all have. A lot of people I know expect drug addicts to be, there's a stigma that goes along with being a drug addict, like you grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, or you were just kind of, an F up, or you wanted to just go party and didn't really care about participating in your life actively, and sometimes that's true. But for my case, it wasn't true. I grew up in a good family. I was allowed to go to private school my whole life. I had straight A's in school. I was a good kid. And everything started to change when I got sick physically. I have really bad fibromyalgia and spinal stenosis, and I'm in pain a lot. And ended up becoming dependent on drugs that I was getting from a doctor, a pain doctor who I was seeing, and I never wanted to go get high or really, I don't even know, I just wanted to feel better. And those visits to the doctor led gradually to even heavier dependence on things that I should never have been taking in the first place. Led to dependence and led to my husband, who is now in federal prison, bringing heroin into our lives, which once that happens, it's really never a good outcome. I know that I probably look to most of you like cute little innocent girl or whatever, but a little over 2 years ago, I was about 30 pounds heavier. I was living in a hotel with my husband because we were on the run from the FBI for robbing several banks in the Salt Lake area. All of this to fund our increasingly exorbitant and expensive heroin addiction. I was slamming about 3.5 grams of heroin a day when I was in my addiction, and that's about an $800 habit a day for one person. And I pretty much figured that we were on the way out. Nothing was making sense. Nothing could help us. I had isolated myself from my family and my friends and hated everything and everyone, including myself. And fortunately, the day after my birthday, my 33rd birthday, I was arrested with my husband in the midst of trying to rob another bank. And from there, I spent a couple months in jail, detoxing, cold turkey. I almost died. I had horrible seizures. I fell several times. I could not eat for weeks. I didn't sleep for about 28 days after the day I got arrested. I was so sick that I really am still curious sometimes as to how I made it through, but I did. I made it a couple months, had a stint at Odyssey House, which was not fun for anyone. I did not do well there. I didn't really feel like I had any support, any kind of positive reinforcement for things that I was doing right. It was all just kind of, getting kicked in the teeth for things I'd done wrong, which I've been doing enough of for my whole life. And I was in Weber County Jail, and I remember Nathan told me that, the best thing for you to do would be to try to get into treatment, a better treatment that might work better for you, a different style of treatment, and also rise drug court. Both ideas I was, instantly opposed to and did not want to do because I didn't think that I could do it, honestly, and I didn't want to set myself up for failure and further disappoint my family and my friends and everyone. I thought, screw it, I should probably just, go do my time and get out of everyone's hair. And I was terrified that I couldn't do it, but I really, really wanted to do it for my family. And that's how it started out. I didn't care about it for me at first. I just wanted to make sure that my family was okay, that everyone was okay, and I'd walk the walk and do whatever I had to do to get through with it and get done with it. And that's how it starts, I think, for most people. Nobody wants to enter into a very stringent lifestyle where you're watched all the time. You have to pee in cups 3 times a week at least, and these things that you're being kind of watched all the time. And that's how it felt at first. And then I started to realize that, especially my PO, Megan, was, positive and supportive of me. Judge Wells, who I was terrified of at my arraignment, maybe? Yes, detention hearings, actually started to kind of befriend me, and everyone started to kind of focus on the good parts about me and the fact that I was intelligent and that I was capable and that I could actually do something positive for myself rather than, going through the motions to appease someone else. And I think it's just what I needed. I needed love, I needed support, and I needed consistency. And as much as I hated all of the obligations that I had a lot of the time, like having to get up early and go UA or, miss work to go to drug court, I always felt better afterwards because there were people there who actually believed in me. Not just people who, wanted to get me out of their hair or through the system or beat me up. And that was absolutely a different thing for me. That was something I was so unused to. And I honestly feel like drug court not only helped me get through my residential treatment by being my support, but helped me to move out of that residential treatment and back into society. Drug court helped me with my medications, which, like I said, I have some physical issues that I deal with and some anxiety issues, and they helped me see a doctor. They helped me get established with Valley and into therapy and taking the correct medications and really getting better. And by the time it ended, I almost felt kind of sad because I was like, oh, I'm going to miss these people. But I really feel like I've grown so much in the past year. And I know that a lot of that was hard work that I've done, and it was hard, believe me. It's still hard sometimes. But I had the support of my peers, I had the support of my probation officer, I had the support of the judge, and everybody who worked in the court was, rooting for me. And I never had people really root for me before, so that really made all the difference in the world. And I think it's so important that we have courts like this for people like me and people who aren't like me. Everybody's got a different story and how they got to where they were and whatnot, but it's so important that we have these programs for people who never have had people rooting for them or who never have had positive anything in their lives, who may not have had a good familial support like I did. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to do the program and graduate the program, and I'm so grateful for the fact that I am alive. I'm not only alive, but I'm alive and well, thriving. And it's an honor to come and talk to you guys today about this, and I just hope that I hope I can do anything that I can do to help, and I hope that there are a lot more stories like mine, because these are good people. Everybody makes mistakes. Some of us just make bigger mistakes, and some of us don't get caught. And I think that we all need love, and that was a big part of the court that I was missing. And I'm so thankful to everybody for helping me get to where I am today, and my family, my lawyer. I just love you guys. So that's really all I have to say. Just thank you, and keep it going.
Thank you so much. We're just about to intrude on Judge Warner's presentation. Brooke?
Judge, before you do that, could you just touch on the screening process for both courts and whether there's qualifiers or disqualifiers, like qualifying offenses or qualifying mental health diagnosis?
On the mental health court, that one's fairly easy because a person has to have an Access 1 diagnosis. They can have dual diagnosis or more than one, but they have to have a serious persistent mental illness in terms of Access 1. In terms of drug court, we are looking at persons who are moderate to high risk for revocation, for relapse into their drug addiction. And Megan, anything you want to elaborate on that
They
before?
don't necessarily have to be in revocation, just in a relapse cycle that we want to stop.
If you,
Or the necessary.
where are the applications located? Are they, who should someone contact if they have someone they want to
Either
refer?
myself or Michelle Watson.
All right. Okay, so Ron, I'll answer more of those questions later. I want to say that Sarah also was the fortunate one in that throughout her participation and these very difficult times, she had her dad, and her dad was there with her most all the time and always was her support, and we thank you for that. Very quickly, and I hope everybody will stay over so we don't cut out Paul's opportunity to speak, but I'd like you to hear from David's mom just for a few moments. This is not easy for her, but this is a mom's perspective of her son's participation. Do you want that mic, or can you come up here? Come on up here.
I hope I don't get emotional, and I already am, so please excuse me. When my son was released from the federal prison, he came home with mental health issues that he didn't have when he went in. As his parents, we were very concerned because we knew through his letters and his telephone calls that he was going to need some help, some professional help. And we were not sure where we could go. We weren't sure who to take him to. And we were not sure how we were going to pay for it. So I was so grateful when we met with his probation officer. And it was suggested about this mental health court program. I hadn't heard nothing about it, was not aware that it was even going on. And David was a little fearful. He wasn't so sure if he was ready for that. So it was offered that he come and observe and just kind of see what goes on during this process and see for himself if he would feel comfortable participating. So we went for a couple of weeks. He felt very comfortable there and decided that he too wanted to be a part of this program. He was released from the federal prison in May of this year. He's been doing very well. I'm so pleased with his progress. He's getting weekly therapy, he's getting his medication, and he's also participating in groups, which to me was a big surprise because, again, he was so fearful being around people, especially strangers, that I wasn't so sure he would be willing to participate in that. But he's done so, and he honestly looks forward to it now. In fact, he was asked to come to this presentation today, but today's his day of therapy and group sessions, and he didn't want to miss it. So I asked David when we were driving up, just prior to dropping him off, I asked him what he enjoyed most about this program. And he said it wasn't just the fact that he has to come and participate, it's the fact that he loves to come and participate. That meant a great deal to me. I cannot thank these people enough. Everyone that works with him, we know they are truly concerned. We know that they really want him to succeed. They want him to be the best he can be in his re-entry into social life and just being an everyday person. And I just want to say I cannot express my gratitude enough for this short time, the progress he's made, and the hope I have and his father has At our age, we were a little concerned about what, if something happens to us, what will David do? Now we know there's people there that if he needs anything beyond the help of his family, he can go to with any questions or concerns, and he'll get the help that he needs. So I thank everyone so much for all that they've done, and I highly recommend it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It doesn't surprise me that Judge Wells would have these courts. She's the biggest recidivist of anyone I've ever seen. When she went to the U.S. Attorney's Office, I was the criminal chief. We trained her that she was a prosecutor, not a social worker. It took about 8 or 9 years to get her to learn how to talk backwards, because she was used to talking this way. She came over here and immediately, you can see what's happened. So none of this surprises me at all. She has a lot of empathy for those who are recidivists because she's chief among them. Now, having said that, let me talk a little bit about Veterans Court. Veterans Court is a relatively recent phenomenon within the American judicial landscape. It's really come about as a result of our involvement in the Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. The last 10 to 12 years of war in the Middle East has caused us to have approximately 2.5 million veterans who have served there, many of them on multiple tours of duty. What we have learned along the way is that most of them come back reasonably well, but about 25% and maybe as high as 30% come back with some form of mental or emotional problem, primarily PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, or other things such as TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, as a result of being close to IEDs and the like. These folks come home, they try and resume their normal lives, if you will, and they find that they have very difficult times adjusting back to the real world. About 5 years ago, I was at VA hospital with my father-in-law, who was a World War II veteran, helping him get some medical care. While he was in seeing his doc, I happened to open a magazine there. I'm just browsing through it, and I read about the first Veterans Court of America, created by Judge Richard Russell back in Buffalo, New York. It was just about a one-page article. But kind of a light bulb went on in my head, and I thought, well, why can't we do that in federal court? Judge Wells had already started her RISE program and had the mental health and the drug courts, and I knew that we had a court that was receptive to this type of thing. I was a retired Army colonel myself. I had spent some time on active duty with the Navy and then went through the Army National Guard. I had some understanding of the military and some empathy for what these returning veterans were going through. So we came back, and make a long story short, we got the support of our court. And about 5 years ago, we created the first, what I called at that time, the Veterans Calendar. Simply try to consolidate those cases that were coming to us as misdemeanors, primarily from the VA campus, as they call it, and dealing with them as they would come in for disorderly conduct, drunk, assaults, drug possession, any number of different charges, trespassing. It was amazing to me how quickly this thing kind of took on a life of its own. Now, unlike Judge Wells, we don't have a relatively well-organized group. we have a relatively not well-organized group. There's myself, there's Amy Earle, who is the Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator for the VA, and Kelly Copley, who's my probation officer. They both do that part-time. I've got Mark Vincent from the the U.S. Attorney's Office, who handles that from a prosecutor's standpoint, Kent Hart from the defenders. Now, as I tell Kent and Mark, the last thing I want in my courtroom are prosecutors and defense counsel, because I want to get in the way. As Judge Wells explained, this is not designed to be an adversarial process. It's designed to identify people who have problems and see what we can do to help them. Now, veterans are quite different in some respects to the folks that Judge Wells has been talking about. In this sense, that they were never criminals, or they would have not gotten into the military. Their problems started after they had been sent primarily into combat environments, had serious issues relating to dealing with the stresses and some of the atrocities that they witnessed. And when they came back, then they started to find themselves getting into trouble. What we have learned as a practical matter is that we can either deal with these people now or we can deal with them later. What I mean by that is many of the veterans in my program, in my court, are Vietnam-era veterans. People who have been on the streets, who have been homeless, who have been drug addicted, alcoholic, suffering tremendous problems with PTSD, insomnia, and the like for decades. And the good news is that when we are able to give them some help, and our VA folks are our partners, we have seen some dramatic and miraculous turnarounds where people who have been addicted for well over 20 years, once they get the underlying symptom or the underlying disease under control, in this case the PTSD, the need to self-medicate to change the way they're feeling begins to subside dramatically. And so it's been really a marvelous thing to see. Now, quite frankly, this shouldn't surprise you, one of the main requirements of veterans courts to be a veteran. So if they're not a veteran, they're not eligible for VA services. And I do a cross-examination with people who come to my court, quickly determine that they're eligible. Then we send them for a full assessment. Of course, they have to agree to participate, but interestingly, almost all of them want to. When they actually have me explain to them, I'm not going to deal with your drug and disorder charge today. I'm more concerned about why you were drug and disorder, and we want to try and figure some of these things out. I get very positive responses from them. We have an embarrassment of riches with the Veterans Administration. Unlike Judge Wells, who is constantly struggling to find sufficient resources to deal with the various problems that her court participants have, ours is one-stop shopping. I send them to the VA, and they've got everything there. Homelessness, they've got a place for them to live, temporarily and then long-term. We'll give them what we call HUD housing vouchers. If they need prosthetics, they've got it. If they need hearing aids, if they need post-traumatic stress treatment, if they need mental health services in resident, outpatient, it goes on and on and on. It's amazing the resources that are available there. And over the last 10 to 12 years, they have become the resident experts in post-traumatic stress. I will tell you that we've had a little over 150 folks go through the program in the last 5 years, and there are some really remarkable success stories. One of the things that people ask, well, where do your cases come from? And that has changed over time. We started with the misdemeanors that were coming off the VA campus. Some of the defense counsel here and others realized that this was a resource and began bringing people who had been charged in the normal U.S. Attorney charging process and who had been released on a pretrial basis by one of our magistrate judges. As a condition of pretrial release, asked if they could participate in Veterans Court. And we've done that with a number of them. And so their felony potential felony defendants who are participating as a condition of their release. Then we have those who are what I call post-conviction supervision people, where our district judges refer people to me who might otherwise have gone to prison, but they come to my court for 2, 3, 5 years post-conviction, and as a condition of that supervision, they must participate successfully in Veterans Court with that treatment. And we've had some really nice success stories. I'm going to read to you briefly parts of 2 letters, and then I'm going to sit down because I think you were promised 2 o'clock, and I learned a long time ago that if you can't give a good talk, give a short one, and we appreciate it just as much. This first letter comes from a fellow by the name of John. And some of this sounds self-congratulatory. I apologize for that, but he just wrote it. I didn't ask him. Dear, well, I kind of like it anyway. Dear Judge Warner, I am writing this letter to express my gratitude to you for the care and concern you showed me while I was in your court. Your major concern was my welfare, and making certain that I received the care that was required for me in order to recover from years of self-medication and an attempt to control the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder brought on by serving as a combat medic in Vietnam. I am currently in recovery and utilizing the tremendous resources available in Salt Lake City Veterans Administration Hospital. I can safely say you were instrumental in saving my life. The values and integrity you displayed made me realize that life is indeed worth living. I have not felt that way for many years. I believe in the period of time the Veterans Court has been in existence, many lives have been saved and the effect has been positive. Please accept my sincere thanks and admiration for what you've done to serve the veterans of our community and our country. I was raised in a family that was LDS with the moral values that included kindness, caring, helping your neighbors no matter what the cost. I went to war as a combat medic. I was not a conscientious objector. And I learned early in Vietnam that I was an infantry soldier first. In that role, I was required to kill and maim others and then attempt to save as many lives as possible. That is an impossible dichotomy to reconcile. I self-medicated for many years to numb the pain of my emotional and physical injuries incurred while in the combat zone. I've been through extensive therapy and realized that given my age and circumstance, I did the best I could. My avocation is now to help as many veterans seeking the help they need and to attempt to direct them before they could end up in the court system without benefit of the Veterans Court, which has been a godsend to me and others. Please accept my heartfelt thanks. The other letter is from another John, although he goes by Johnny. I'm just going to read a portion of it and I'll be done. I was victimizing myself by avoiding the issues I did not want to face, by abusing substances that only created more and more difficulties legally and personally for myself. When I began your program, I was still a victim. Nothing was my fault. I didn't need to be there, and all the things people continue to tell themselves to avoid taking responsibility for their choices. But as time went by, I came to accept and realize my choices and actions landed me in the positions I was in, that I was responsible for my being where I was. These past few months, I have made some very difficult decisions that have impacted my life dramatically. I've come to accept that I am responsible for me, and even though I struggle to pay bills and work for very little money, I don't need to use drugs, drink, or ignore the problems that I'm facing or will face in the future. A lot of what I've learned to face and accept has come from the intense therapy I've done with the VA. I've seen denial in a lot of people, and now know what I must have been like. My sobriety means more to me than anything else, and knowing and finally believing that I have become stronger and finally becoming who I want to be, a good man. Every day I hold my graduation coin, and in times when I'm most stressed and desire to return to my old ways, I hold my coin and know that I'm worth more than that. And the coin he's referring to is when we graduate them from our Veterans Court, rather than give them a piece of paper, those of you familiar with the military know we have challenge coins, and this is what I give them. It is a coin that has the U.S. District Court seal on the one side and the VA seal on the other. And it says District of Utah Veterans Court. And then just a little tip with a hat to my ego. It says first we finish. I have found very strong men who, upon receiving this at the end of their time in my court, will have tears in their eyes because they don't know what it means. Thank you very much.